When an avoidant person and you genuinely have the potential to build a lasting relationship, the journey rarely feels simple in the beginning. It usually doesn't resemble the effortless love story people imagine. Instead, it can feel uncertain, with moments when you feel incredibly close, followed by sudden periods where they seem to retreat without warning. This happens because avoidant attachment often creates a rhythm of connection and withdrawal, rather than a steady progression toward intimacy. Many people immediately assume that this inconsistency means the relationship is doomed or that the feelings aren't real. But sometimes, the distance is part of a deeper emotional process. The connection brings feelings to the surface that the avoidant has spent years learning to manage alone. And when those feelings become intense enough, they can create both a powerful desire for closeness and an equally powerful instinct to protect themselves from it. Often the first sign is an emotional bond that feels unusually strong for both people. There can be an effortless understanding between you, a sense that something about the connection feels different from ordinary relationships. The avoidant may experience this just as deeply as you do, even if they struggle to express it directly. Around you, they might feel understood, accepted, and surprisingly comfortable. You may notice moments where their guard seems to disappear completely, almost as if they can finally relax without having to perform or protect themselves. Yet that same comfort can eventually become frightening. Real intimacy means becoming emotionally dependent to some degree, and that can activate old fears within an avoidant person. They may worry about losing their independence, becoming vulnerable, getting rejected, or allowing someone enough access to hurt them deeply. So when the connection begins becoming more serious, their instinct may be to create distance, even though their feelings have not necessarily disappeared. This is usually the point where people become anxious and start trying to restore the closeness immediately. They send more messages, ask more questions, seek reassurance, explain their feelings, or attempt to convince the avoidant that everything is safe. Their intention may come from love, but constant pursuit can accidentally make the avoidant feel even more pressure. Instead of creating security, it can reinforce their desire to retreat. But when a relationship has genuine potential, you eventually begin approaching the situation differently. You stop treating every withdrawal as proof that you are unwanted. You recognize that their distancing may be connected to their internal defenses rather than being a simple judgment about your worth. That doesn't mean accepting unhealthy behavior or ignoring your own needs. It means responding thoughtfully instead of allowing fear to control your actions. You become calmer, establish boundaries, and give the relationship room to breathe without abandoning yourself in the process. That change can have a profound effect on the dynamic because the avoidant begins experiencing something they may not be accustomed to. They can feel emotionally connected to you without feeling completely consumed by the relationship. Your presence is there, but so is your independence. You are no longer communicating the message that they must constantly reassure you or remain available in order for you to feel okay. Instead, you demonstrate that you can care deeply while still maintaining your own identity. That creates a different form of emotional safety. The avoidant can begin discovering that intimacy does not automatically mean losing freedom. After creating distance, they may gradually reach toward you again. Then the cycle may repeat. They come closer, become overwhelmed, step back, process what they feel, and eventually return. From the outside, this can look like the same pattern happening over and over. But the real question isn't whether the cycle exists. The important question is whether the cycle is changing. When there is genuine emotional growth, every return begins to look a little different. The periods of withdrawal may become less extreme. Instead of disappearing for long stretches, they may return sooner. Instead of avoiding difficult conversations completely, they may begin sharing small pieces of what is happening inside them. Instead of allowing intimacy to become overwhelming, they may learn to remain present for longer. These changes can be subtle enough that you might overlook them if you're only looking for dramatic declarations of love. But emotional development often happens quietly. The avoidant gradually starts learning that closeness does not have to erase their individuality. They begin understanding that you aren't trying to control their life, repair every wound for them, or force them into emotional dependence. Because of that, the defenses they built over time can slowly become less necessary. Their walls may not disappear overnight, but they can begin opening small doors where there were once solid barriers. And while the avoidant is learning how to tolerate intimacy, you are learning something equally important. You become more emotionally grounded. You stop measuring your worth by whether they are texting, calling, opening up, or pulling away on a particular day. Their behavior may still affect you, but it no longer determines your entire emotional state. You begin developing the ability to choose the relationship from a place of desire rather than desperation. There is a major difference between saying, "I want you in my life," and feeling, "I cannot be okay without you." The first comes from choice. The second comes from emotional dependence. A healthy connection requires both people to remain whole individuals. An avoidant cannot build lasting intimacy if they constantly feel responsible for another person's emotional stability. And you cannot maintain your peace if their every withdrawal sends you into panic. Both sides have to grow. This is where the relationship can begin developing a much healthier balance. You learn that their need for space doesn't automatically mean abandonment, while they learn that your need for closeness doesn't automatically mean control. You become better at communicating your needs without chasing. They become better at acknowledging emotions without immediately escaping from them. You both begin meeting somewhere in the middle. That middle ground is where sustainable intimacy can actually develop. It doesn't require you to tolerate disrespect, inconsistency without limits, or emotional neglect. Instead, it requires mutual effort. You need enough security within yourself to avoid losing your identity while trying to maintain the relationship. And they need enough self-awareness to recognize when their protective habits are damaging the bond. When both people are willing to do that work, the connection can become something much more stable than the intense push and pull that existed at the beginning. Eventually, there may be a quiet moment when you realize the dynamic has genuinely shifted. There may be no dramatic speech, no cinematic declaration, and no single event that suddenly changes everything. Instead, you notice that the avoidant doesn't retreat as deeply anymore. They communicate more consistently. They begin allowing you into parts of their emotional world that they once kept completely private. They don't simply accept closeness when it happens, they begin participating in creating it. Their instinct to run may still appear occasionally, but it no longer controls the entire relationship. At the same time, you notice something different within yourself. You aren't constantly monitoring their behavior or wondering when the next withdrawal will happen. You have developed enough inner stability to remain centered, even when things feel uncertain. The relationship becomes less about surviving the next cycle and more about building something together. That is the real turning point. A relationship like this doesn't become meaningful because it somehow avoids every difficult moment. It becomes meaningful when both people learn from those difficult moments instead of repeating them endlessly. The avoidant learns that vulnerability doesn't automatically lead to losing themselves, while you learn that loving someone doesn't require abandoning your own emotional foundation. Both people become more aware of their patterns, their fears, and the ways those fears influence their behavior. The relationship becomes a place where growth happens, rather than a battlefield where one person chases and the other escapes. And that is why you shouldn't judge the entire connection only by how intense the beginning feels. Look at the direction it is moving. Ask whether communication is improving, whether trust is increasing, whether withdrawals are becoming less destructive, and whether both people are becoming healthier within the relationship. If an avoidant repeatedly returns to your life, the return itself should not automatically be treated as proof that you are destined to be together. What matters is what happens after they return. Do they show greater consistency? Do they take responsibility for their behavior? Do they make genuine efforts to communicate? Are you becoming more secure rather than more obsessed with keeping them close? Those are the signs that reveal whether the connection is actually evolving. A relationship with an avoidant can teach both people lessons that they may never have been forced to confront in an easier relationship. It can expose fears around vulnerability, independence, trust, rejection, and emotional dependence. But the goal should never be endless waiting for someone to change. The real goal is mutual growth. When both people become capable of loving without controlling and connecting without losing themselves, the relationship has a chance to become something deeper and more secure. In the end, what makes a difficult connection last isn't simply how strongly two people feel about each other. Intensity can bring people together, but it cannot create stability by itself. What matters is whether the two people involved become capable of handling that intensity in a healthier way. The avoidant must gradually learn that emotional closeness can coexist with freedom, while the other person must learn that love can coexist with self-respect and independence. The push and pull may be part of the early journey, but it should not become the permanent destination. Real progress means the distance becomes less threatening, communication becomes more honest, and closeness becomes easier to sustain. Eventually, you may look back and realize that the relationship wasn't strengthened because everything was easy. It became stronger because both of you confronted the patterns that once kept you apart. The lasting bond is created not by perfect circumstances, but by two people who continue evolving until they can finally meet each other with greater understanding, security, and emotional maturity. And perhaps that is the part of this entire journey that matters most. When you love someone with avoidant tendencies, it can be tempting to spend all your energy trying to decode every silence, every delayed message, every moment of distance, and every unexpected return. You may find yourself asking whether their withdrawal means they never cared, whether their return means they finally understand your value, or whether the connection is somehow destined to work out. But eventually, you have to move beyond those questions and look at the bigger picture. A meaningful relationship is not proven by how many times someone leaves and comes back. It is revealed through what both people learn, how they behave differently, and whether the relationship becomes healthier over time. Love should not require you to constantly abandon your peace just to keep another person close. If an avoidant truly wants a place in your life, their growth will eventually become visible through their actions. They may still need moments of solitude. They may occasionally become overwhelmed by emotional intensity. They may not suddenly transform into someone who communicates perfectly or expresses every feeling without hesitation, but there will be movement. They will begin recognizing their own patterns instead of blaming you for triggering them. They will make an effort to communicate rather than simply disappear. They will understand that asking for space and completely shutting someone out are not the same thing. Most importantly, they will begin taking responsibility for the effect their behavior has on the relationship. That is what genuine progress looks like. Not perfection, not constant closeness, and not endless promises, but a gradual willingness to stay emotionally present, even when vulnerability feels uncomfortable. And you have your own part in this transformation. You cannot build a secure relationship by becoming obsessed with keeping someone from leaving. You cannot love another person into emotional readiness. You cannot prove your value through endless patience, unlimited understanding, or repeatedly accepting behavior that hurts you. At some point, love has to include yourself too. You need to be able to say, I care about you deeply, but I also care about the way I am treated. That isn't pressure, that isn't punishment, that is self-respect. The healthiest response to an avoidant isn't becoming colder, playing games, pretending not to care, or deliberately making them jealous. It is becoming secure enough to remain compassionate without becoming emotionally dependent. You can understand someone's fears without allowing those fears to become the rules of your life. This is why the most important transformation may actually happen inside you. In the beginning, you may have believed that getting the avoidant to stay was the ultimate goal. You might have measured progress by how quickly they responded, how affectionate they became, or how often they reached out. But as you grow, your definition of success changes. You start asking whether the relationship gives you peace, whether communication feels respectful, and whether both people are genuinely contributing. You stop asking, how can I make them choose me? And begin asking, are we both choosing each other in a healthy way? That question changes everything. Because real love isn't about convincing someone of your worth. It is about two people recognizing each other's value and making a conscious decision to build something that respects both individuals. So if you are currently experiencing the push and pull of an avoidant connection, don't let the intensity alone convince you that this person is your destiny. Strong chemistry can exist inside unhealthy relationships too. Missing someone doesn't automatically mean the relationship is right. Someone returning doesn't automatically mean they are ready. And emotional pain isn't proof that the connection is profound. What matters is whether there is growth behind the feelings. Look for consistency. Look for accountability. Look for emotional courage. Look for the willingness to have difficult conversations instead of constantly escaping them. Look at yourself too. Are you becoming calmer, stronger, and more secure? Or are you becoming increasingly anxious and consumed by the relationship? The answers to those questions will tell you far more than any romantic theory ever could. Sometimes the most beautiful outcome of an avoidant relationship is not simply that the person finally stays. Sometimes the greatest transformation is that you stop needing them to stay in order to know that you are worthy of love. You discover that your value was never determined by their ability to recognize it. You become capable of walking away from inconsistency without hatred, because you understand that protecting your peace is not the same as giving up on love. And ironically, that inner stability can completely change the dynamic. When you stop chasing, controlling, convincing, and waiting anxiously for reassurance, you create space for the other person to make their own choices. If they genuinely want the relationship, they now have the opportunity to step toward you freely, rather than responding to pressure. And if they don't step forward, that truth matters too. A relationship being emotionally powerful does not mean you are obligated to keep waiting for it to become healthy. Sometimes people care about each other and still cannot create the kind of relationship they both need. Sometimes the timing is wrong. Sometimes the emotional wounds are too deep. Sometimes one person is willing to grow while the other remains committed to the same defensive patterns. Recognizing that isn't failure, it is emotional maturity. You don't have to turn an avoidant into a secure partner to prove that your love was real. You don't have to remain available indefinitely to demonstrate loyalty. And you certainly don't have to sacrifice your happiness simply because you believe the connection could eventually become something beautiful. But when both people are genuinely willing to grow, something different can happen. The relationship gradually stops feeling like a constant battle between closeness and independence. Space becomes something that can be communicated rather than something that creates panic. Vulnerability becomes something that can be approached gradually rather than something that immediately triggers escape. Conflict becomes an opportunity to understand each other instead of a reason to disappear. And love becomes less about emotional highs and lows and more about reliability, trust, patience, and mutual effort. That is when the connection begins to mature. You are no longer trying to survive the relationship. You are actually learning how to live within it together. So don't become addicted to the cycle simply because the reunion feels powerful. Don't confuse someone missing you with someone being ready for you. Don't mistake distance followed by affection for emotional security. Pay attention to the pattern, but pay even more attention to the direction. Is the relationship becoming healthier? Are both people learning? Are boundaries being respected? Is communication improving? Is trust becoming stronger? Are you both becoming more capable of giving and receiving love without losing yourselves? Those are the questions that matter. Because if the connection is truly moving towards something lasting, you won't have to rely forever on confusion, uncertainty, and emotional guessing. Slowly, the relationship will begin to provide more answers through behavior. Maybe that is what makes these relationships so transformative. They force you to confront parts of yourself that you might have avoided in easier connections. They teach you the difference between patience and waiting without limits. They teach you the difference between compassion and self-abandonment. They teach you that giving someone space does not mean putting your entire life on hold. They teach you that loving deeply does not mean chasing endlessly, and they teach you that emotional security is not something another person can permanently give you. It is something you develop within yourself and then bring into the relationship. When you reach that place, you no longer approach love from fear, you approach it from choice. So if an avoidant person is truly meant to build a lasting relationship with you, don't expect a perfect fairy tale. Expect growth. Expect uncomfortable conversations. Expect moments when both people have to confront old habits. But also expect that genuine effort will eventually become visible. Their walls should not remain exactly where they were at the beginning. Your anxiety should not remain exactly where it was either. The relationship should evolve. And if it doesn't evolve, that is important information too. A connection cannot survive forever on potential. At some point, potential has to become behavior, feelings have to become choices, and words have to become actions. In the end, the strongest kind of love isn't the one that never experiences distance. It is the one where two people learn how to navigate distance without destroying the bond or destroying themselves. It is the kind of relationship where one person can say, "I need some space," without making the other feel abandoned, and the other can say, "I need more consistency," without making their partner feel trapped. It is where independence and intimacy can exist at the same time, where vulnerability isn't treated as weakness, where boundaries aren't interpreted as rejection, where both people understand that closeness should never require either person to disappear inside the relationship. And maybe one day you'll realize that the real sign wasn't that they finally stopped pulling away. The real sign was that both of you became different people than you were when the cycle began. They became more willing to stay present. You became more capable of staying grounded. They learned that love doesn't have to take away their freedom. You learned that love doesn't require you to chase someone for reassurance. And somewhere between those two lessons, the relationship finally found balance. That is what lasting love requires. Not obsession, not fear, not endless pursuit, not waiting for someone to magically change. It requires two people who are willing to grow enough to meet one another honestly. So remember this. If someone is truly capable of building a future with you, you will eventually see that possibility reflected in their choices. You won't have to spend forever analyzing hidden meanings behind their silence. You won't have to convince yourself that every withdrawal is secretly proof of love. You won't have to sacrifice your emotional stability to keep the connection alive. Healthy love may still have difficult moments, but over time, it creates more security than confusion. It gives you room to breathe, while still making you feel valued. It allows both people to remain individuals, while creating something shared. And that is the difference between simply having an intense connection and actually building a lasting relationship. Whether this person ultimately stays or walks away, let the experience teach you something valuable. Let it teach you how to love without losing yourself. Let it teach you how to communicate without chasing. Let it teach you how to understand another person's fears without making those fears your responsibility. And most importantly, let it remind you that you deserve a relationship where love is not something you constantly have to prove, earn, or wait for. If two people are truly ready to create something lasting, they will eventually meet each other through action, accountability, patience, and mutual effort. The journey may not be simple, but it should move somewhere. Because at the end of the day, it isn't the intensity of the connection that determines whether love survives. It is the evolution of the people inside it.